What? Being late because you were helping a pregnant woman you saw on the side of the road, isn't that a classic lie? Are you kidding me? On the day of my son's wedding, I made a terrible mistake. I was so focused on taking a pregnant woman who was in labor to the hospital in my car that I completely forgot about my son's wedding. The woman who was supposed to become my son's bride, Sarah, was breathing heavily and trembling with anger, her face muscles quivering like I had never seen before. This time, the fault is entirely mine. I should sincerely apologize. After finishing the wedding ceremony at the church, the relatives were walking through the church to head to the reception venue. The sound of church bells rang in my ears. Sarah pointed at various spots on the dress I was wearing, making a puzzled expression. This was because the dress had gotten sticky from the fluid when I was helping the pregnant woman whose water had broken. I can't believe this. What a dirty look you have. And it smells. I hate this. Are you enjoying ruining my wedding? I'm sorry, Sarah. I'll get changed right away and try to make it to the reception at least. I don't know if it's true or not, but it's unacceptable to prioritize others. I think you're failing as a parent. Please don't see Patrick and get out of here right now. Sarah, in her bridal outfit, took off the veil she was wearing and threw it at me. The veil was light and fell at my feet. If it were me, even if someone collapsed on the road or there was a traffic accident, I would come here. Because today is such an important day. Her anger did not subside there. She grabbed the pebbles spread around church grounds with both hands and threw them hard at my face. Ouch! It hurts, Sarah, stop it. I covered my face and got into my car. Sarah then slapped the front windshield of the car hard and shouted, "Go home." I gripped the steering wheel tightly. It seems I won't be able to attend my son's wedding, and I've completely ruined the relationship with my daughter-in-law. But if Patrick can be happy, then that's okay. It's all my fault today. I'll just go home now. Just as I was thinking this, someone knocked lightly on the passenger side window. It was a very unexpected person. My name is Hillary Morris. I lost my husband in a traffic accident when I was young and raised my son, Patrick, by myself. Patrick graduated from university and got a job at a major electronics manufacturer. He has finally become independent, and now he is dating a woman he met at a mixer. I felt let down possibly because Patrick had become independent, and the pain I had been able to ignore until recently had been creeping up on me. I have resigned from my long-standing job as a nurse and am now unemployed. I'm scraping by on my savings. I feel guilty for relying somewhat on Patrick's income now that we live together. In my mind, my son is still the adorable child who would bring me a bag of potato chips from the candy store corner, gleefully saying, "Mom." The bearded Patrick before me and the cute son from those times seem like the same person. I wonder to myself. Patrick, usually in the same gray sweatshirt, drinks and watches TV after work every night. But on weekends, he showers in the morning, shaves his beard meticulously, and grooms his eyebrows carefully. After spending over 30 minutes in front of the mirror, he quickly returns to his room, then comes out looking neat and satisfied, takes out juice from the refrigerator, and pours it into a glass. What's today? A date? Not really a date. Maybe I'll just go for a walk along the river with her. The sound of juice flowing down his throat could be heard as he drank it heartily, then he brushed his teeth and hurried off to meet his girlfriend. I took out the newspaper from the mailbox, pulled out today's flyers, and put on my glasses. Well, I wonder which supermarket has specials today. Ever since getting married, it has become my daily routine to check the flyers every morning. I buy meat at this supermarket and vegetables at that one. After marking several flyers with a red pen, I suddenly tilt my head. All dressed up for a walk. I wonder if his girlfriend is happy with that. Perhaps because I always emphasize saving money, Patrick is frugal with his spending. He showed little interest in toys or gaming consoles as a child, and instead, he used to draw on the back of newspaper flyers. Even his pencils and paints were hand-me-downs from a neighborhood boy. Still, Patrick never complained and seemed happy drawing pictures every day. That day, I was cleaning from morning, and in the afternoon, the doorbell rang. Who could it be? I thought as I opened the door, and there was Patrick standing there. What? Why did you ring the doorbell? Mom. I have someone I want to introduce to you. Patrick introduced a young woman in a white dress standing behind him with a slightly embarrassed expression. Her slender arms matched the white dress perfectly. Despite it being the middle of winter, the woman was dressed in just a thin dress and a lace shawl, looking as beautiful as a fairy. Hello. I'm Sarah, dating Patrick. Nice to meet you. Sarah, who introduced herself, greeted me with a crisp voice and a lovely smile. Patrick told her to come inside, leading her to the living room. While I was looking for some snacks to offer them, Patrick came into the kitchen, and I lightly tapped his head. If you're going to invite someone, tell me. I'm not prepared for a sudden visit. Oh, sorry. Sarah told me not to mention coming here. She said she wanted to see my home as it is. As it is. Huh. I was relieved I cleaned that morning. We talked a bit, and Patrick, with a serious look, told me he was considering marrying Sarah. Patrick had turned 30, and I had braced myself for this day to come. Yet, thinking that the days of just the two of us were finally coming to an end, my heart ached a bit. Suddenly, Patrick's phone rang. Sorry, it's from work. He excused himself and left the room. Sarah and I, left alone, chatted idly until she suddenly pointed to a painting of the sea on the wall, painted by Patrick. Is that a painting by Patrick? Yes, it is. It's painted on the back of a flyer, so you can see through it a bit, but it's a nice painting, isn't it? Sarah stood up to take a closer look at the painting of the sea that Patrick had done. A blue sea and blue sky. Nothing else, just the sea stretching out, painted entirely with blue paint. The blue sea just spreads out, and in the blue sky, there are two small clouds. Patrick and I went to the beach just once when he was a child. I explained to her that this was a painting of the sea from that time. After staring silently at the painting for a while, Sarah sat down in front of me and said quietly, "It's a very sad painting." Huh? Is it? Oh. I wonder, I thought it was a happy painting from when we played at the beach together. Is that so? Normally, when you go to the beach, don't you draw yourself swimming? Sarah spoke firmly to me. This painting only has the blue sky and blue sea. She boldly stated that surely there are no happy memories of the sea, just a painting recording the first sight of the sea he ever saw. And flyers, huh, you didn't even provide him proper drawing paper, even though he had such artistic talent. She accused me. Patrick is a wonderful person. You should have allowed him a richer life. His paintings show talent. Surely, you crushed it. That's. Patrick has never said he wanted to seriously study painting. I thought it was just a hobby. He must have understood from a young age that his home was poor. How pitiful it is, being raised in a single-parent home by you. Sarah took out a clean white handkerchief from her bag and pressed it against her slightly moist eyes. Until Patrick returned from a call with his company, Sarah explained how frugal and budget-conscious he was. Listening to that, I was filled with remorse from the bottom of my heart. I was frugal and had taught Patrick the same. Since he had always been like this from a young age, now as an adult, he probably practiced it as a matter of course and was perhaps called stingy by others. Perhaps Patrick had been complaining to her about not being able to afford luxuries in his childhood. I might have been a terrible mother, as Sarah said. Patrick returned after finishing his phone call. Sarah, as if forgetting all that had been said, asked if there was an album or something from Patrick's childhood. While opening an old album nostalgically, they talked happily about what photos to use for the wedding. It seems Sarah doesn't work and lives at her parents' home helping with household chores. Frugal Patrick and home-living Sarah try not to spend money, so they often walk in the local park. Looking at photos of Patrick from his childhood in the album, she smiled gently. "We walked here the other day, didn't we?" She was truly angelic. A year was about to pass since that first meeting. Patrick and Sarah were continuing their relationship smoothly, and as far as I heard, they had no major arguments and got along well. Whenever she came to visit, she would look at the painting of the sea on the wall and mutter sadly. Pitiful. One day, I took it down from the wall and tucked it away in a corner of a shelf. I wanted to avoid making a bad impression on Sarah. Later, though simple, we had an engagement party, meeting with both parents. Sarah's parents were calm and kind people who were very impressed that I had raised my son alone after losing my husband at a young age. Sarah listened to that unamused. Ultimately, even now, with the wedding imminent, a heavy atmosphere continued to hang between her and me. And then, the day of the wedding arrived. The weather forecast had been clear all morning. Blessed with wonderful weather, it was the middle of winter, but there was no wind, and the sunlight was warmly comfortable. I put on a black dress and drove to the venue in sneakers. I left the house with more than an hour to spare. On the way, I stopped at a store to buy something to drink, and in the corner of the parking lot, a woman was crouched down. I thought she was just sitting, but I could hear a faint moaning sound, and I approached her. "Are you all right?" The woman sitting down did not respond to my voice. Instead, she breathed heavily, desperately clutching the hem of her clothes. I quickly realized that she was pregnant, and that she was starting to have contractions. I used to be a nurse, and having seen many people in that state, I smiled reassuringly. "Can you get into my car? I'll take you to the hospital." The pregnant woman looked surprised, but after a moment, she told me that her regular doctor was at the general hospital in the city. After laying the pregnant woman in the back seat of my car, it seemed that her waters had broken, as amniotic fluid was dripping down her thighs. I quickly returned to the store, bought a towel, and wrapped it around her waist. I called the general hospital, informed them of her name and the fact that she was in labor, and then drove off immediately. She lay down and contacted her husband, presumably through her smartphone. I considered calling an ambulance, but the roads were clear, and I thought it would be faster to take her directly to the hospital in my car. "It's okay, just calm down. We'll be at the hospital soon. Take deep breaths and relax your mind. If you're cold, let me know. I can lend you my jacket or anything." In the car, I continued to encourage the pregnant woman. Soon after arriving at the hospital, I quickly handed over the pregnant woman to the medical staff waiting in the parking lot. Released from the tension, I suddenly felt a wave of fatigue wash over me. After explaining the situation in detail to the on-duty nurse, I decided to take a short break. As I sat in the waiting room sipping juice, 2 men rushed over to me. The men were the husband and father of the pregnant woman I had just assisted. Both were in suits, perhaps they were working. Both repeatedly thanked me, saying, "Thank you very much." I shared that I had been a nurse and smiled. "The child will definitely be born safely." Then, I noticed something. Looking closely, the elderly man who seemed to be the pregnant woman's father was wearing formal attire. Seeing his appearance, I came back to myself and remembered. Right. I must head to the venue immediately, or I'll be terribly late. I stopped the 2 men from continuing their deep thanks and said, "I'm sorry. I have somewhere I need to be now." And I quickly returned to my car to rush to the venue. Despite hurrying as much as possible, I was significantly late. By the time I arrived, the wedding ceremony had already finished, and even the group photos were taken. Everyone was just about to move to the reception venue. In the midst of this, I caught sight of Sarah in her pure white bridal dress. Her face peeking out from the white veil was even more beautiful than usual, and I involuntarily caught my breath. She walked step by step with the assistance of the staff, like a lily flower. However, in the next moment, Sarah's eyes met mine. Ignoring the staff, she rushed towards me with a furious expression. "I'm sorry, on the way here, I came across a pregnant woman who had started labor." "What? Being late because you were helping a pregnant woman you saw on the side of the road, isn't that a classic lie? Are you kidding me?" I desperately tried to think of an excuse to prove I wasn't lying, but nothing came to mind. I explained that I was so focused on getting the pregnant woman to the hospital in my car that I completely forgot about the ceremony. Sarah was breathing heavily and trembling with anger, her face muscles quivering like I had never seen before. It looked like she was about to grab me, and I earnestly apologized. This time, it was entirely my fault. I should sincerely apologize. Thinking of Patrick, who would have been left without parents at his table, and might have been looked down upon by other attendees, pained my heart. Sarah pointed at various spots on the dress I was wearing, making a puzzled expression. This was because the dress had gotten sticky from the fluid when I was helping the pregnant woman whose water had broken. "I can't believe this. What a dirty look you have. And it smells. I hate this. Are you enjoying ruining my wedding?" "I'm sorry, Sarah. I'll get changed right away and try to make it to the reception at least. I don't know if it's true or not, but it's unacceptable to prioritize others. I think you're failing as a parent. Please don't see Patrick and get out of here right now." Sarah then slowly took off the veil she was wearing and threw it at me. The veil was light and fell at my feet. Her anger did not subside there. She grabbed the pebbles spread around church grounds with both hands and threw them hard at my face. "Ouch. It hurts, Sarah, stop it. If it were me, even if someone collapsed on the road or there was a traffic accident, I would come here. Because today is such an important day." Even though calling an ambulance would have been slower than me driving her, there was no time to make such excuses as Sarah continued to throw gravel at me. I covered my face and got into my car. Sarah then slapped the front windshield of the car hard and shouted, "Go home." I gripped the steering wheel tightly. It seems I won't be able to attend my son's wedding, and I've completely ruined the relationship with my daughter-in-law. But if Patrick can be happy, then that's okay. It's all my fault today. I'll just go home now. Just as I was thinking this, someone knocked lightly on the passenger side window. I stiffened involuntarily and looked that way. The father of the pregnant woman I had just dropped off at the hospital was looking at me with a refreshing smile. "Huh. From earlier." As I opened the window halfway, the elderly man gave me an even nicer smile. "I'm sorry, I couldn't thank you properly earlier. My name is Frank." I got out of the car, glancing at Sarah who was right next to me with horns on her head, and greeted Frank. The man who introduced himself as Frank handed me a business card from a neat jacket. It had the name of the company where Patrick works, and seeing his title, I inadvertently covered my mouth. "President. Are you the president of the company where Patrick works?" Frank smiled broadly and nodded vigorously. I had heard that Patrick's company's boss would be attending, but I never expected it to be the president himself. I respected Patrick a bit for his audacity, but now was not the time for that. As I apologized to Frank for making such an embarrassing scene, he shook his head vigorously and looked towards Sarah. On the way to the ceremony, I received a call that my pregnant daughter had started labor on the street and was rushed to the hospital. "Sorry for being late, bride." "Oh, no. If that's the situation, it can't be helped that you were late." "Is that so?" "Sorry, but I could hear you in a bit loud voice." For me, she is the benefactor who helped my daughter. I truly regret that this benefactor's actions have caused you trouble. But more than feeling sorry, Frank continued, his anger was evident. That his daughter, who couldn't even call for help, was in labor, and being helped by this brave woman. The hospital was impressed with the quick response, as calling an ambulance wouldn't have been timely, and it was a dangerous situation. And he couldn't possibly forgive belittling someone who had protected someone important to him, Frank stated sternly. Sarah was speechless, her face turning pale. Eventually, perhaps worried that the bride was still not arriving, Patrick hurried over. Seeing Frank, he showed respect immediately. As I started to explain the situation, Frank stopped me with a smile and explained everything to Patrick. His version was far more exaggerated and much kinder than anything I could have said. A brave and wonderful woman who helped a pregnant lady and was late to the important ceremony, but Sarah, not understanding this, had thrown stones at her, he explained with gestures. Indeed, being a big company president, he was very good at explaining. Patrick, listening intently, was shocked, his eyes wide. Sensing the uneasy atmosphere, Sarah's parents also approached, looking worried. Thinking that if this continued to blame Sarah, it wouldn't be just about the wedding anymore. I apologized to Frank and to Sarah as well. I'm sorry, so sorry. It's all my fault for not coming to the venue sooner. Yes, that's right. Normally, don't you change at the venue? Why did you come from home already changed? Well, because I was told there would be a fee for changing at the venue. I shrank back involuntarily. Indeed, she was right. I should have just sent the dress ahead and changed in the dressing room at the venue instead of wearing it all the way from home. However, I hesitated because of the cost of sending the dress and the fee for a changing room. I had heard that Patrick and Sarah had saved diligently for the wedding costs. I didn't want to inflate the expenses because of me. Thinking that way backfired. It's so sad that Patrick had to live with such a poor mother. How much do you intend to make him suffer? I felt faint and placed my hand on my forehead, looking up at the sky. What a clear blue sky. If only I hadn't been late, it could have been the perfect wedding. Just as I felt like I might collapse, a large hand supported me from behind. Patrick firmly grabbed my shoulder and was looking at Sarah. His eyes were not those of the kind son I knew. They were very cold. My mom has always been great at saving and saving up. She managed to send me to college without needing student loans. I'm very grateful. Patrick. It's true we were poor, but Mom always put me first and raised me with so much love. Someone like you has no right to call that pitiful. Ever since meeting Sarah, I regretted making Patrick live a modest life. I couldn't buy him the games he probably wanted, or take him to amusement parks. Wanting something, wanting to go somewhere. Such desires couldn't even be expressed because of our poverty, which forced a spirit of thrift upon him. I had always thought of him in that way. I'm sorry, Sarah, but ridiculing my mother like this, I can't imagine living with you anymore. Please consider our engagement off. What? Don't joke around. Don't mess with me, you mama's boy. At Patrick's unexpected declaration of breaking off the engagement, something snapped in Sarah, and her expression changed drastically. Her skin, once as beautiful as a white fairy's, turned bright red, her mascara ran down with her tears, making her look like a witch. As she cried and screamed like a demon, everyone watched from a distance, unsure of what to do. Patrick spoke quietly to her who was screaming. His voice probably didn't reach her ears. But still, Patrick spoke in a calm, gentle voice. Making fun of saving and laughing at poverty, it's prejudice. Saving is necessary for the future. Instead of ridiculing it, I wished you could respect each other and acknowledge our differences. I glanced sideways at Patrick's lonely profile. Surely. He must still love her, I thought. Thus, the wedding was called off. Upon learning the situation, Sarah's parents felt responsible and offered to cover all the costs of the venue. However, Patrick insisted on taking responsibility too, saying he was partly to blame, and offered to split the costs. Sarah's parents were deeply surprised by this. And they apologized to me again, saying they truly regretted what had happened to such a wonderful son. As a result, Sarah was disowned by her parents and kicked out of her home. The incident at the wedding spread among her friends, and now she seems to be completely isolated. With her beautiful features, she has unfortunately turned to dubious nightlife businesses. Meanwhile, the daughter of Frank, whom I had helped deliver safely, gave birth without complications, and both mother and child are healthy. Hearing this through Patrick, I felt a profound joy. On a sunny Sunday, while starting to clean the room, I found a painting of a blue sky and sea tucked away in a corner. It was the painting that Sarah had called pitiful, drawn by Patrick. As I paused my cleaning and gazed at it, Patrick came over in his usual worn-out clothes and took out juice from the fridge. "What are you looking at?" "A painting you made when you were little. Remember? It was always on the wall." "Oh, that one." He drank his juice with an unnatural expression. "By the way, Sarah said it's pitiful that you drew this on the back of a flyer because you were poor." At my words, Patrick snorted. "It's not like I had to draw on the back of flyers because we were poor. And I didn't draw there because of saving or anything." "Really?" "Because, Mom, you always looked so intently at the flyers for sales, right? If I drew on the back of that day's flyer, you'd definitely see my drawing, wouldn't you?" My mouth fell open in surprise. Suddenly overwhelmed with amusement, I burst out laughing. Patrick joined in the laughter, and our home was filled with joy. "Next time, I'll find a woman who values you too. Saving is also good for the environment. Surely a good person will come along." I conveyed it in my heart. From tomorrow, I will continue to support Patrick's search for a partner from the sidelines.